Good morning. How's everybody this morning? Got your third cup of coffee ready to go, right? Want to charge a hill today, right? Want to talk to all my colleagues, right? Well, let's see. It says your voice is critical. Make it heard. That's your theme today, right? So you're ready to go. Talk to us, right? I can't see because of the lights, but there we go. There we go. Well, thank Rick for the nice introduction. Rick's from my district, lives about 30 miles from where I live, and he came to speak. I think he made mention of that fact to our Financial Services Committee a while back, and he brought with him there's one file on a home that they were financing, and the theme of the hearing was with regards to housing finance, and the file was literally this tall, and so the folks behind me, all our staff, would kind of guess how many pages were in there. And so I asked the question when it was my turn to ask questions. I said, Rick, how many pages are in that file in front of you there? And he lifted it up and he said, Congressman, we don't measure by the page anymore. We measure by the pound. And he let it drop for effect. It was great. I use that line all the time because I think it points out the fact that the regulations all of us have to deal with are way too much. We need to be able to get some of that off, both you and your client, your customer. But thank you for being here today. Your voice is something that needs to be heard. And I always tell people you need to be able to know your congressman and your senator by first name, be able to call them up and be able to have a relationship with them, because what we do here does make a difference, whether it's legislation or whether it's oversight, the rules and regulations that we deal with every day. Right now there's not a lot going on in financial services, unfortunately, because we've got a very partisan atmosphere, very toxic here in Washington. And but we did manage to get a couple things across the finish line. One of them was the TRIA bill, one of them was XM, and then we managed to kick the can down the road on flood yet again for, I think, the third year in a row, although we've kicked it about 3 times every year. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll have some sort of a flood plan that will make more sense and something that will be more long-lasting, so there'll be some certainty around what's going on with flood. From the standpoint of other issues, BSA-ML is something I think the Senate is going to be taking up, hopefully, and combine that with beneficial ownership. I've worked very closely on a bipartisan basis with a lady out of New York, Ms. Maloney, and we've come up with a bill that's got through the House. I think it's something that they can marry with the BSA-ML bill and perhaps get something across the finish line in the Senate. It addresses a lot of the issues and a lot of concerns that many of you have with regards to those issues. I think there is an opportunity to get that done. Also, to me, the primary issue that I'm working on right now, and I think is of primary importance to all of you, is CECL. To me, this could be the most devastating rule that has been promulgated since mark-to-market. We have FASB, Federal Accounting Standards Board, which has promulgated this thing without a study, without any kind of cost-benefit analysis, to try and do what they think is going to have more transparency with regards to risk in the balance sheet. But from the standpoint of credit unions and community banks, the GSEs, credit card companies, this is going to be devastating. In fact, we had 2 credit card companies that got their stock downgraded as a result of CECL because their earnings were going to be eaten up by having to move so much of it into the reserves. I've got a study from one of your associations that indicates how much of a hit it's going to take to the credit union balance sheet. I've got a study from the banks, and I've got a study from a lot of the credit card folks. And I think we can get to $100 billion pretty easily. And when you have a $100 billion hit to your economy, that's a pretty significant gut punch. And so the other problem you have is that it keeps individuals from having access, especially low and moderate income folks, from having access to home mortgage credit. The Home Builders Association, and you can look this up on their website, tell us that for every $1,000 increase in the cost of a home loan, 100,000 people no longer have access to credit. That means you're going to hit the very people who a lot of them are your customers, a lot of them are people who are your friends and neighbors who are wanting to live the American dream of having a home and yet can't do that as a result of this crazy accounting rule. And then the real big problem is the procyclicality of this thing, such that whenever we have a downturn in the economy, suddenly this exacerbates it just like mark-to-market. And so having gone through the mark-to-market fiasco, it really gives us a point in time to go back and point to with regards to what could happen with this rule in the future. And so without a study, without any cost-benefit analysis, my point to the FASB folks always is, tell me how I'm wrong. I've got over 40 years in the financial services world. I've been through 3 or 4 downturns, significant downturns. I know what happens. I know how devastating it can be to your customers, to your communities, to your business. This can't happen. We have got to be pushing back on this. And so I would ask you, when you talk to your legislators today, to mention CECL. Tell them how bad a deal it is, what kind of impact it's going to have on your communities, on your businesses, and on your customers. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be devastating, I think, to our economy as a whole. And we've got to push and push hard. One of the bills I've got right now is to force them to go with the Administrative Procedures Act, which is a law that says every federal agency has to go with a cost-benefit analysis and a study, and then also have Congress approve that rule in order for it to take effect. FASB is an independent agency that does nothing like that. They're not under the Administrative Procedures Act, and yet they're forcing the regulators to enforce a rule that the regulators couldn't even put in place themselves if they wanted to because of the Administrative Procedures Act. This is so nonsensical, it just blows your mind almost. But anyway, we're going to continue to work on that. If you will, though, when you go talk to your legislators, please talk about CECL with them. If you're not up to speed on it, find somebody in your delegation that is, so that we can have a good dialogue with your legislator and get the word out, that we can keep pushing hard. We've made a lot of progress with regards to getting attention on this. I got an appropriation bill last fall. I got a study forcing the Secretary of Treasury to do a study on this, so that at some point we're going to have some numbers we can actually point to that we can say, hey, look, this has got to stop. But appreciate your efforts there. Again, we'll work with you as best we can. Another issue that's going to be very important is data privacy and security. We're getting ready to drop our own bill here shortly on this, but I think you had Trey Hollingsworth here earlier this morning, and he is one of our leads in our committee on this issue. I've carried the bill for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think in the coming years, as much as we like all the technology and all the things that are going on with technology, it's wonderful. People can have access to information more quickly. There's also risks there, as you well know. How do we protect the data? How do we allow the customer to have as much, if not more, access to their own information as what they need? And again, it is their information. That's the key. But by the same token, the more freedom that they have, the more protection there needs to be. Otherwise, you wind up with some of the bad guys, the bad actors in this, going out and accessing that data and then doing some nefarious things with it sometimes. I know right now you've got companies that are what they call data aggregators, that they go in and scrape the screens every night. If you give them the right to go in as a third party and take that information, and then they model it and they sell it, and you don't even know about it. But if your entity, if your credit union has got a computer at the end of the day that updates everything at night and allows a direct draft off of their account, there's very likely a lot of screen scraping going on, and you got to be very careful with that because some of these guys are not good actors. But at the end of the day, it's about all of us working together. We certainly appreciate what you do, the fact that you're here today to talk to your legislators, to point out to them your concerns, your problems, and work together with them with regards to how we can make this a better world from the standpoint of financial services, how you can do a better job of representing and helping your own customers and clients. With that, thank you so much for being here and the opportunity to speak with you today. Look forward to meeting all the ones who are going to come through my office today. Anytime you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact my office. Thank you very much.